Welcome back to Deep Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. So I set myself up today, and I don't really have a topic, but I've been reading your comments. And I haven't really done specific episodes except the last kind of abstract episode with 2 or 3 subjects. We talked about the comments as well. So there's just all kinds of stuff. Plus, there's some current event stuff that I could probably talk about on the main channel. So we are in a really weird moment in time, aren't we? I mean, what's really crazy is if you're young, the worst thing you could think is this is normal. This is so not normal, folks. Those of us who've been on this earth at least 4 decades and just seeing sort of how the evolution has evolved of how they try to manipulate us. It's actually gotten very comical, hasn't it? And I think the really comical factor is that we have figured out what they're doing. And so they aren't good at coming up with new ways to trick us. And we have each other too, right? Sorry, I had to turn the light off. It's too bright in here. With the independent press mechanisms that we have, if you think about it, it's just a web server and some sort of app. For me right now in 2023 fall, Telegram is the best place to go. Now, Telegram is packed with crap, but that's why you just want to get onto good channels. Now, we do have a little bit of political bias. Sort of what other options do we have? I think personally in the United States, every single candidate that's running, except maybe Trump and RFK, is completely and utterly controlled by the system. And yes, that includes the dude in Florida. So I appreciate if someone goes in there and goes, oh, I hate this guy. I got derangement syndrome. Don't understand it. I understand I don't understand it. It's like, okay, name someone else. Name someone else we can put in that position to kick some ass. Minus the secret Army 17 movement thing, right? They are bombarding us with every single article you could possibly read, right? So if you follow an agency or a company, they're all just barfing out stuff constantly. Look over here and look over. Oh, pay attention to AI. We just landed on the moon. Get another medical treatment, which never worked in the previous attempts, right? Every single person that got an active drink from the last 2 years, 2.5, I guess you could say, they are now physically damaged for the rest of their lives. It never did anything that they said it would do. Not a single thing they said it would do was ever the result for anyone. No one got that indication. They still caught it. They still transmitted it. Whatever it was, people would get it that I know of, and the whole family gets sick. But again, if you're using a test that's not built to sense it, believing that it can, well, remember, they overspun the tests, which means that anything you want to find in there, you want to find out if you're a Smurf, just keep spinning that test. Oh, yep. Mm-hmm. They tried to pull it again, and because of word of mouth, it failed. Word of mouth right now has to be one of the things that they are absolutely terrified about. Terrified. Think about how anyone found out anything that they really believe is true. The best formulas for sifting information is to meet someone in real life, get to know them, find out all about their lives. When you ask someone 1,000 questions, you're sort of cross-referencing their ability to maintain either the truth or a lie. And, the more elaborate the lie, the more amazing it is to hold it down, right? Which is why I try to never, I'll do Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, Santa Claus. And then the other one would be maybe if I'm in a concentration camp and, someone's, or in the Inquisition and someone says, do you believe in Cthulhu? I'd be like, well, maybe. Yeah, can I just get out of here? My God knows where I am with him. So it's like, whatever. Other than that, It's funny, as you get older, you realize you started exaggerating things when you were a child, not because you wanted to deceive, but because it felt amazing, or you heard the story one way and you never gathered any facts about it and you repeat it. And then as you get older, all that, if you're, trying to keep yourself clean, it just starts kind of tapering off, and you really start policing what you say, because you're like, oh, maybe the fish wasn't, 24 inches long. Word of mouth. Huge. They can't stop it. There was this sort of analysis of during the 17 movement about the power of a meme. And right after that was sort of dropped, because these memes were going around and really changing people's minds. I mean, one meme, a good one, will influence more people than an entire career of someone walking in front of a camera on Instagram, right, who thinks they're an influencer, right? We need to kill that shit. Now, if someone's doing something on Instagram that's actually got some talent, they're dancing, they're doing something, even though it might be repetitive every day, that's real. That's something. They're not trying to influence you. They're showing you their life. But these people who have to use that word, I almost think if you use that word, one doth protest too much, right? It's like you're full of it. We know people that have tried to give us information and then they die in mysterious ways. Not everyone dies in a mysterious way. Or they were severely harassed before they end up taking their own life. Those are individuals where we have to look at what they were saying. It's probably not necessarily everything that they were saying. Sometimes it is. I think Rosa Koire was 100%. Michael Rupert, not 100%. He believed in a bunch of the hype. Bill Cooper, he revealed the 2001 September event before it occurred, dead by the end of the year. Some folks managed to protect themselves enough that no one can easily remove them, like a Russell Brand. So they take a whole news organization, a whole government paid for television service, and they attack the guy. Is he an angel? No. I went to class with Russell for 3 days in Los Angeles. And I've said this a couple times, but now that he's under attack, I mean, he is definitely, I think he's not an over macho alpha male, but he's not a beta male either. He's just a dude, pretty straight shooting, unbelievable intelligence in this guy. Again, I think the guy, pound for pound, has more vocabulary that he uses on a daily basis than any philosopher or poet in history. And he's good at it. I mean, he must just, when he speaks, he must feel like he's just eating pastries, man, with his brain. But he doesn't do it to sound intelligent. He just does it. It's just, I guarantee you. I literally learned words from this guy, listening to him ask questions. He was interviewed. I actually got a chance to hang out with him a little bit. I gave him my information on a little USB. It was the funniest little thing. I put together my information on it because I was working with another British comedian who's way more famous at the time than he was. And I gave him this little USB with my information on it because he was going to start a film company and I wanted to contribute to the writing staff somehow, And he holds out his hand and he's all, is this your information? This little thing right here, the funniest thing. So when you're over the target, you get the flag, as everybody says. Look at this channel. Unbelievably shadow banned. Unbelievably controlled by scripts. I think one of the things we have to be careful with is sort of how we approach information on the internet, which is abstracted away from us. There's a million things I could say about this, of course, because there are individuals that understand that if you believe in this one particular concept, let's call it concept A, that it can be a gateway drug to a bunch of other similar appearing complementary other pieces of information. And so what they do is they branch out into these little tiny hairs of what you might also be willing to believe because they understand how your brain has put together logic to believe a certain thing. And so the reason why I mention this is it is one of the main reasons why you have to make sure that you truly believe something based on some concrete evidence. And I don't mean your spirituality. That's always going to be sort of an instinctual logic, faith-based thing. But if somebody says, look, XYZ PDQ in some conspiracy corner, and it seems logical, okay, you've got to jump in and investigate. You have to spend the time. Otherwise, it's just an idea, and it seems plausible. And someone asks you if you believe it, you go, well, I haven't had a chance to investigate it, but so far, I've had a limited amount of time to think about this, to even think about the words that someone, spoke to me. Seems like initially, it seems okay. Need to investigate. And that way you sort of keep yourself from putting feet in certain pools of stuff that you simply don't truly believe. You may end up totally believing it, but here's the reverse of that algorithm. When you do your deep dive, and you do it several times, and you try to get multiple perspectives of a particular argument, different opinions from other people, different disciplines of science sometimes, like that event in September of 2001. If you talk to pilots, they talk about planes not being able to do what you saw. We talk to, like me, I've talked to friends that were actually there and they thought they saw things with their own eyes. And when I pushed them to see where they were standing, they're inside of a restaurant watching it on TV. They didn't really see it with their own eyes. And so thousands of those conversations, plus having a background in physics, the architects and engineers, they say it all the time. They go, look, if you have one class in high school physics, you'll know that what you saw was impossible. And this is what everybody says who took physics. They're like, ugh. But think about it. How many kids in school today, or even back in the day, ever took physics and paid attention? Some kids just take it to get a grade, And that's why I want to loop back. I did an episode on the subject that I'm calling the linear mind. It's a term I think you might want to start using and start to observe sort of your interactions with other people. I am now, because I keep experiencing the repercussions of people without linear minds. I work with a couple folks that don't have linear minds, and it's an amazing thing. Plus, I have a personal friend, close personal friend without a linear mind. And I'm seeing this, like two people in two completely different areas who don't know each other doing the exact same thing. And I think this is going to affect the overall ability to discern truth. Now, what I mean by not having a linear mind is someone who can't see really a few minutes in front of their eyes, if even not just a few seconds. They are unable to plan further than the concept that they know, not today, but at a different time, something, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to go to Hawaii or whatever. But in terms of the steps to get there, not really. It'll be this now moment that they have a chunk of cash. They just decide on a whim to buy the tickets, and then that enforces their need to get to Hawaii because they're just burned a bunch of money. But other than that, they have no long-term vision of the world. A person without a linear mind will have no credibility, no integrity, because they're not doing it necessarily intentionally at all. For instance, they'll say, oh yeah, we'll eat dinner tomorrow, or something like that. And then tomorrow comes, oh yeah, no, I can't, because they forgot about the commitment the next day. As soon as they woke up, everything from the previous day is just sort of kind of a dreamy memory. When you work in technology, it's extremely difficult because the reason why a person goes from being a now worker bee to being a manager of people is because you've demonstrated the quality of a linear mind. You must plan. You must see and comprehend a vision handed down by your leader, or you are the leader. And then you have to be able to plan before you execute. A person without a linear mind jumps in. Like it's funny. One of the kisses of death when you want to write a movie is you jump into screenwriting software and you just start writing dialogue. You might get 45 pages in a single night and be like, oh my God, this is gold. But you won't come back without failing because you don't know where you're going. Now, there's exceptions in all categorizations, but that's a big one. You will design a script for 2 years to 10 years before you actually write it because you want to know whether or not your effort is actually going to pay off. And there's so much to a great script. You can't just fake it till you make it, right? If you're building a giant application in technology, you must plan. I mean, there was an old saying when I was a kid, you plan 97%, execute 3%. That is true for technology. That is true for script writing. You plan for 97% of your time. And then what'll happen is, and Robert McKee, my teacher, where I was with Russell Brand, he said it right. He says, if you have your script perfectly designed, you'll type it in 2 weeks. It happens like that. And you may need to write it all down on paper. You may need to type it into Word, break it all down. And then sometimes you just think about it in your head for years and you just go, I think I got it. And then you might do little exercises outside, but and I'm giving you an example that's real, but it's sort of a metaphor that overlays on all of your life, right? And cell phones are destroying the brains, right? But when you think you've got it, and you say you built it in your brain, you will still type it in to make sure that you actually have it. Tesla was notorious for designing machines in his head, but I'm pretty convinced that he would, all of his patent papers and illustrations and things, were him actually writing it down just before he built it. Even if it's just more footnotish stuff, he has to make sure he's got all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. I was thinking about, I listened back to the episode I talked about the chip in the hand. This is the new thing that they want to do for the digital currency worldwide, where they put this little chip inside your web of your fingers here. And again, every place that's ever been done, people get cancer right there. Because even if it doesn't have a power supply, when it's hit by a scanner, it's going to reverberate a frequency, and that will 100% destroy the cellular tissue. Maybe you're just your mitochondria. Well, that's your immune system in that area of your body. It won't work, right? That's why they're gradually giving it to you in your telephone, all this other stuff. But I was talking about the KMA chip, which stands for Kiss My Ass, which is what Tony Rockefeller told Aaron Rouzeau, right? You get this chip, don't worry about it. If you become a senator and you become my friend, I'll make sure you get a KMA chip and you can go anywhere in the world. No limitations for you. You take your private jet, travel whenever you want. There's no 15-minute city for you. And I was trying to think of, I'm always trying to think of these examples of what position could they get us into to even get the most staunch sort of fighter to capitulate. Not sell your soul to the devil and that kind of stuff. I'd rather walk into a fire than that shit. But to get you to kind of go, all right, yeah, give me the KMA chip, whatever, right? What would do that? And I think it's probably a very fictitious scenario, but man, it's hard to think that this could ever happen. But it'll make sense to you, I think. The world is, they're just suffering from the Roman Coliseum, right? They're eating till they're fat. They're watching TV and just watching bullshit 24/7. Anybody who can sit and deliberately watch a commercial on TV, you're a special kind of fucking idiot. I'm just total idiot. I mean, this stuff is built for the lowest IQs of human existence. You never see a smart commercial. Only exception would be obviously the Super Bowl comes out with a few, but even those have sucked for 10 years. It used to be the commercials were super creative and you had What's Up or Budweiser and that kind of stuff. There's none of that stuff anymore. But there comes a point as an adult, I will tell you, where you kind of look at everyone, and this is said by senators and House of Representatives and just geniuses in general, and they'll say, you get the country you deserve. You get the world that you deserve. Now, of course, there's a ton of us out there going, hey, well, we don't want this crap. We want freedom. That's it. Now, I'm talking about a KMA chip. I'm not talking about walking into their dystopian world and eating all the social credit system and 15-minute city thing. I'm not talking about that. But there comes a point where you look at the rest of the world and you just go, I didn't want to ever feel separated from my fellow man. Every man's created equal. I do believe that. The problem is that if you have a machine that can do 100 things and you turn the TV on, as soon as you turn the TV on, like normal TV, not on demand, great content that might be classic or something like that, they've got you. You're watching millions of pharma commercials every single day. All kinds of stupid products you don't need. I mean, how many times can they tell you that toothpaste has more fluoride in it? Well, at some point, it's just a block of fluoride because they just keep going, right? Since I was a kid, I mean, shit, man, I'm 54 years old. A tube of toothpaste can't get 25% forever because eventually, like a stock, you're totally diluted out of whatever other substance is in there. Well, it rots out your pineal gland, your teeth, your bones. But we still have the major upper hand. We are still, I think, in the 90 percentile of human beings that understand freedom. And by them screwing everyone over with the drink and getting into schools and trying to get parents pitted against their children, just right in your face. Like, there's going to be a point when all these city council people and all these school union people are going to get hunted like Nazis. I mean, maybe not killed, but they're going to get put in prison because everyone's just going to get tired of it. Now, hopefully, somebody steps in before it ever gets that bad. It was funny. If you follow the 17 movement, you heard the story that, oh man, they're not doing nothing now because the supercomputer said that we'd have giant riots and there'd be too much loss of life if there was some sort of martial law and they came in and actually just fucking upheld the Constitution of the United States in America and all the district laws and just laws in general. You can't steal shit and get away with it. In California, you can steal like $950 worth of stuff per incident as many times a day. And what's funny is there's some videos releasing where people think they can actually do that. And they're getting fucked up by security. It's funny. If you got 50 friends that all want to do it at the same time, that's the only time you're ever going to get it. But believe me, they're going to video. Your face has been videotaped. Your phone has been GPS netted, and they got who you are on paper. They're just waiting for someone to say, "Okay, arrest everybody." But the reason why you might not believe that we're in the 90% majority of normal citizens is that they control your vision of what the percentages are. But we have reached a point, to finish my previous point, where now you're going to have what they said they were trying to stop, these riots and all this chaos, because they're not doing what they should be doing. Whoever those people are, right? There have been points in my past, I can't really put a finger on it, but there have been points in the past, and when I was a really young kid, where some adults around me said, oh yeah, man, that moment was really a make or break moment for our country or this area of the world, this state, this city or whatever. It was huge. And I was like, ooh, wow, that's wild. And I don't understand what they're talking about. And now if we're able to correct the world's issues next year in 2024, all around the world, we put to bed all these folks that are trying to literally lock you down and kill you, screw up your food supplies, everything. Okay. We'll tell our kids, oh man, that was a close one. And there's kids that are probably in their 20s and 30s right now who haven't paid attention to any of this, and they'll go, oh, really? Was there something going on? Okay, whatever. Tick, 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 tick. And the entitlement continues, right? I used to struggle with the question back in my radio show, MK Ultra Radio, and in the first several years of this show, where people would say, well, what can I do? And I wasn't, I did answer the question word of mouth, but we didn't have such a clear path because we weren't being censored badly. And who would you talk to? And is anyone even trying to find your voice? Usually the answer back in the day was no. And you don't want to go to a picnic and, go to Thanksgiving dinner and start talking about this crazy stuff. And so today it's different. Today it is everyone's suffering in some way, and they're trying to get rid of that suffering. And some people are taking advantage of the world, and they will postpone the debt that they owe society because eventually it will come back around. So word of mouth is huge. When the evilest people that you know tell you that someone is lying and that they're telling you the truth, that's a good indicator of who to believe, or at least who to give more credibility to. We have the most corrupt politicians in the world retiring or resigning out of their positions and then turning into these information czars in giant government groups. I mean, they always make sure that they take care of their own. So, part of it is that they also have the television. And again, I hang out at this lounge. This is the one I have the key to. I have keys to two. But this is the one that's just very intimate. My best buds all here. I'm kind of got the same status at the other location, but the other location is much more posh. They have to show, sports. It's one of those sports places. This is a place that if any of you came, you'd be like, man, I had the best conversation of my life, and he wasn't even there. But they play normal television at my other place. And now I have seen, thousands of commercials. I can't believe I don't watch them, but it's nauseating that we're in a room where everyone's subconscious is being programmed. Burger King commercials. Who the fuck eats at Burger King? I don't know a single soul in my fucking life that goes, oh, I got a choice. I'm going to eat fast food, and I'm going to Burger King. That's my favorite place. Never heard that ever. How that place stays in business blows me away. They're all over TV. It's crazy. These drugs that they're trying to sell you through the television, right? And that's what they are, right? The disclaimers, I looked up once, and I didn't realize it, but the disclaimer that is being kind of said at the end, all those side effects, right? They're only reading every other side effect that's on the TV. One of them was tuberculosis, but the narrator skipped that word. Well, I wonder if that was a mistake. Because if that ever went over your ears, because say you're looking down at your telephone, right? They don't want you to hear tuberculosis because you go, what? Right? That shit kills you. It's airborne. It's really bad. They don't want you to hear it so that you go, oh, there's this drug. And so you might go tell your doctor, I'm interested in that drug, not knowing the side effects. And, does your doctor really read you all the side effects? Nah. They just say that there are some. Make sure and read that piece of paper when you get home. And it's like, 5-point font. It's like reading a terms of service from Apple. I heard a really interesting statement that blew my mind because you talk about word of mouth, right? And this is going to be very similar to one I proposed, 8-9 years ago, which is I have this question I ask grown adults. The older you're asking the person, the better. And it is an amazing epiphany to look in their face when they try to find an answer. And I say to them, I said, okay, how old are you? And they go, blah, blah, blah. I say, okay, in your entire lifetime, and this is using American, obviously, what law or statute has been passed by the United States government that improved your life? And so you might have someone who isn't white talk about desegregation, which was a rough and bumpy 10 years, right? And the other one said seatbelts. That was a good one. Making that a law, you got to put them on, right? Because we still see people fly out of cars all the time, right? When you search for that answer, there isn't one because they haven't done anything but take your money, raise your taxes. That's all they do. I used to think that, I don't know what I used to think about politicians and sort of what they were trying to do. I kind of thought they went up there to get retirement And now I know it's all about money laundering. The whole thing is about becoming rich, getting insider trading information, getting all the government contract information. Pelosi was the most valuable witch ever. Her stock market shenanigans are fantastic. It taught us just how they're doing it, right? She's supposed to have earned about $7-8 million in her 35-year career, but she's worth $220 million and just grows every single day. It's important to figure that out because she's going to rot in hell. But after her, when we try to replace these people with good people, we can now put in regulations that say you can't do these things. I mean, Trump had to sell all the shares of his business to become president of the United States, while Pelosi's putting in these insider trading bids on NVIDIA cards because she knows the defense contractors are buying tons of NVIDIA cards for AI. As much as that's frustrating, remember the crime, and then you'll benefit from that, right? So that was my little epiphany, but someone told me one about pharma that was interesting. Now, we use the word drink for the thing that was imposed on you. The medical regimen that was imposed, which was illegally imposed on everyone, absolutely against the Nuremberg codes, right? They said, there's not a single study that proves that one of those drinks has ever prevented anything from happening in a human being. It takes you back. It's like Luke, I'm your father moment. You're like, whoa, yeah, wow, you're right. And sometimes it might prevent a smaller thing from occurring that doesn't have any life-threatening issues, but some idiot takes a drink for it, and then later they get a different thing that's much more powerful and kills you. But society is a bit like a homeless person right now. Like a homeless person that is on drugs, that has had a really bad run of being a homeless person. Not these people that take interviews and they have their stuff together. They're like, yeah, I go there for my food, I get my cell phone here, I love it, Not those kind of folks. We're talking about the folks that look like zombies all over the streets of America, right? That's what society's like. And living I live in a fairly populated area that's well taken care of, but we still have our weirdos every once in a while. I don't see those zombie folks that much. But LA's got them. San Francisco's got them. New York's got them. Chicago, everybody's got them. Major cities. You look at them and you're thinking, well, geez, could we even rehabilitate these people? I mean, how do you get them stabilized? Malnutrition is one thing, but addiction is a whole nother level. And so society is exactly the same, even though they're not taking some narcotic that's, 100% literally a narcotic. They're watching TV that's brainwashing their minds. They actually allow people to tell them who to hate and who to like. That is one of the most amazing low IQ things that I didn't realize as a kid. Happened to me as a child, right? Especially in my teen to 20s, I wasn't really paying attention too much to all that kind of stuff. But now it's the game. It's the game. You go to any website of any major news organization, and the interesting thing is the absolute zero substance of every single article on a front page. Who's getting divorced? Who did this thing, that thing? It's all frivolous. And even if you cared, you couldn't apply it to your life. You couldn't. But that's the game today. I mean, how is it that it's 100%? Today I went to one that was it was perceived as being a right-wing news organization, but now it's swung way to the center left. And every single article was just crap. Everything. So word of mouth is where you're going to get your justice. It really, really is. And there's always someone out there, at least right now, it's very easy to find someone who doesn't know something but is interested in it. And I'll tell you a funny little thing. In my other lounge, it's a great place. I will sit in a room, and I'll make it easy for you. There's two other guys with me. the numbers vary. But there's 2 other guys in the room with me. And we're watching Shark Tank or some stupid true crimes thing, which is just, it makes me want to puke in my mouth when someone wants to watch these true greed things, or, one where someone's husband got murdered or something like that, or wife got murdered. Like, why the fuck do you want to watch that shit? I don't get it. Like, now, that's not my analogy. What really happens here is one guy will pack his shit and leave. And the other dude who's in there is someone maybe I know just a little bit better. And they know me because the owner actually figured me out enough to give me a few nicknames about, he's the guy, you go talk to him, man, he'll talk to you forever. And so these dudes will go, so what do you think about this? And it will be anything from the economy to those Mexican aliens to something else, but something that's along the lines of what we like to discuss. But the dude was holding back until the other dude left so we could have a one-on-one situation. This has happened to me thousands of times, people. And you're just as good as me talking about any of this kind of stuff. So I think because of this algorithm, there are just tons and tons of people who love to talk about this kind of stuff. But there's a demanding thing. If you're going to start talking back, you want to have a pretty damn good memory. And they say repetition is the best method of brainwash. Well, you can also repeat the truth and, again, keep studying things, even though you think you know the facts, the numbers. You know me, I'll get a number swapped with some other number. I just called Rachel from Blade Runner, Jessica, the other day. It's like, it makes me want to puke when I say, like, oh my God, how could I not get that name right? But then you have to have a good memory because you need to look at their face and try to figure out how much they know, because there's sort of some context that needs to be kind of put out there first before you can engage in what is the true answer. And you want to make it the elevator pitch, right? I think a lot of you know what that is, but if you don't know what that is, it's an old story about how to get your business that you're trying to start and you need help pitch to somebody else. And for me, it's like selling a script to somebody, which is the thing that no one wants to hear, because there's so many people out there who can't write, who will just chew people's ears off. Like, oh God, you're one of those people. Once they know you're a good writer and you're actually mentored by masters, they'll be like, oh, what do you got? And you can still bore the shit out of them in 2 seconds, but you want to have a 3-floor ride from floor 1 to floor 3. That ride after the elevator shuts might be 10 to 15 seconds. And you've got to say something so gripping that benefits the person listening, that you want to have a little bit of benefit, you want to have a lot of curiosity, to the point when the door opens, either they're like, okay, keep talking, or all right, you got my interest, let's get some time together, sit down. And the burden isn't off you just because they want to be with you for more seconds and more minutes, or maybe even if you're blessed enough to get a dinner or a lunch, you got to be as quick to the point as possible. And that's why smoking guns are amazing, right? There are literally, thousands of you that comment on the show. And what a lot of you don't know is that having 700 shows out there, I see all the comments. So you can make a comment. Someone asked me this. I want to make sure I answer this. If you comment on like the 80th episode, I don't even know what that is, I get it right at the very top. So don't think that because you're watching old videos and commenting that somehow you're not being seen. It bubbles right to the top. But I want to give a huge shout out to everybody who engages the comments, and you're a regular. We have the most incredible individuals. The comments that you guys put in there, I literally don't have enough energy to truly express to you how some of you just utterly floor me. I've said this in several episodes, given examples. That's probably the best way to hear me compliment something you've said. But you guys are smoking gun experts. There's at least 25% of you that are smoking gun masters. I'm just going to say it. From the moon to 9/11 to whatever. You guys know the things to say that are the elevator pitch, word of mouth. Where someone, you just put what MC Search, He wrote this awesome song called Herbals. Put an herbal in your mouth, and it's like weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. You know, you can't forget it once you hear it, sort of thing. And that's what a good smoking gun is. It's an herbal. It gets it in your head, and you can't erase it. It's like that song you can't get out of your head. Imagine having a kernel of truth. And God's given us this little mechanism where when you hear BS all the time, that's all you ever hear. But you're trying to sustain life on a negative, evil, chaotic pattern of energy. You feel the destruction of it when it goes through you. And like if you're sentient and then you go watch commercials, you know the commercial is literally a conspiracy against you. They're trying to sell you a product you don't need. It's two or more people writing copy to sell you something you don't need, right? But when you hear a kernel of truth, oh my gosh, it's like drinking the most incredible, clean water that rejuvenates your body. And you're just like, wow, I feel amazing. I'll give you an analogy of like what I think is like a great word of mouth analogy. When I watch professional sports, which baseball's my game, because I can sit, talk with you, pay attention, not pay attention. Every single element in the game is like a chessboard. But when I get to like football or something, there's a play, right? The quarterback has a play. And, you know, it's either a pass or a run. The run plays, but when they say, okay, you're supposed to grab the ball and go right down the center where every fucking guy from the other team is, because they read your play. They understand. Now, if the player would just look to the right or the left, depending on what side they're on, it's wide open and there's no one out there. As soon as you sneak by these dudes, and that's what these running back guys are, man, they are literally the fastest runners in the world. They're the most nimble dudes on the team. They don't weigh 400 pounds being called strong, you know. The famous football players, other than the quarterbacks, are the ones that can think for themselves and abort the play just as soon as it happens. They look and they're like, I'm not going in that direction. Boom, they go around and they score. But they're not encouraged to do that because I think the fix is in on all those games, right? All these NFL players would come out and say, yeah, you know, it's all decided before we ever hit the field. It's controlled by penalties. It's controlled by the refs. It's controlled by the quarterbacks. Reason why they make so much money for paying these expert quarterbacks, which, you know, they're amazing passers and whatever. But they never become coaches after they've made $1 billion from being a quarterback. Man, if you're that smart at playing that game, then you should, and you love the game, and you're going to be bummed when you retire. You should be a coach. But they never become coaches because the coaches are different breeds of dudes. They can think for themselves. And so that's my opinion anyway. But we have to be smart like that. A smoking gun is the thing that goes around the group of disinfo that's in front of your face. What's interesting about sort of these Orwellian ministries of truth that are coming out, you know, from all these different, the old horseface from New Zealand who's out there now trying to become the minister of truth for that country. Like, wow. And now, what is it, Canada, you know, Mr. Castro's son, he's trying to do it to Canada. Like, come on, Canada. Come on. Show me how tough you are. Let's do this. I believe in you. You're up there. Your Mounties. Let's get it done, man. But they won't allow you to analyze what they say is true. How about the guys that are all for the drink? And these other super mega professionals, these guys with pedigrees that will blow your mind, go, okay, debate me then. Hey, you, Dr. Fauci, let's debate. Come on. Let's talk about what's really going on inside the human body. One dude recently got vials of the drink. He was given like dozens and dozens of them after they were used, which they all have a little bit in the bottom of the bottle, right? And he did a biopsy on all those bottles, and he's like, holy crap. The stuff I found in these bottles, he said, was just terrifying. But you put a few out there that are fake, or even 50% that are fake, or even more than that. And then you get false confidence. So when the next one comes around, you're like, oh, yeah, man, I felt great last time. Oh, I don't feel so well. Gadunk. At this location, I think in 2015, 2016, we had a guy come in here, and I've mentioned this dude a couple times, but I want to stress this because it's one of the systemic problems we have with literally policing the world from all this craziness. He's a psychologist, and he worked for several years on the side, going to one of the local prisons and just counseling, anyone needed help. He's a really good guy. And he was pushing on me. Now, this is him working me. It was kind of cool. He wasn't like us in a totally awake manner, but where he was inside psychology and within the disciplines of law enforcement in California, he told me, he goes, look, here's the problem with what's going on in California. He said they won't hire a police officer if the individual has an IQ over 110. In fact, the closer you get to 110, your application is going to get lost, delayed, you won't get hired, everyone else gets hired before you, so they can't show you there's a discrimination against your brain. You're just going to have issues. So if you ever got in that situation, you're like, man, I should have been hired. That could be one of the reasons. But get this. So he's telling me this, and I'm busy. I'm working on my computer. I'm like, oh, hey, that's cool. That's like Clockwork Orange, right? By the way, I refer to Clockwork Orange as if that was not fiction. That's based on sort of the thing we see today. What I meant by that was, this is in Logan Run episode. We know that people who are criminals are now becoming police officers in some areas of the United States. I don't know if it's happening in your country. Usually it's in a major city, not in a suburban area, but even in my little hometown. A buddy of mine, he was a good guy. He never hurt another person directly, but he apparently moved a lot of drugs. He's now a cop. He got busted in high school for depositing like $87,000 into his personal account in cash, and they just came and picked him up one day. I think he was a graduation. I don't know how that worked. It must have been right after school. But my buddy is like, let me show you this on the website. And so he brings up, it must have had like a little tablet, I think is what he had. He brings it up and he zooms up the paragraph, which actually stated publicly about your IQ and getting hired. And I'm looking at this thing going, well, I wasn't prepared for this at all, right? I'm looking at this going, man, that's actually in writing. He goes, yeah, this is a state website. He goes, nobody goes as far down inside the website, but it is publicly displayed that they really don't want you to have. It literally said, I think 110 in this paragraph. I don't know where he was in the website or what website he was on, but he schooled me. And so it's one of those pieces of information like, well, okay, I don't really have anything to do with that information right now. I can't take it and change the world, but I can definitely mention it on my show if it happens to occur to me, right? But that's what you're doing to other folks with your word of mouth, of course. So yeah, they don't like it when we attempt to go backwards towards their dictatorial ministry of truth. I mean, how many social media websites tell you that you've violated the truth? And they'll have like, it'll be something like this. It'll be like, President Obama was seen strangling and drowning his chef just outside of his house. And he had his fingers on the throat of the guy, and he was in a blue shirt, and he was doing this guy. And Facebook will say, oh, it'll flag it. This is not true. You want to see why? And it'll basically say, oh, he wasn't wearing a blue shirt at the time. Shit like that. They're not denying the overwhelming truth of what happened. They'll just pick out one little fact and say you got one little thing wrong. And that's why when I try to do things and try to communicate and write these days, like long, detailed business emails or whatever I'm trying to do, I write everything I'm feeling, and then I go back and I try to erase every single word and every single sentence that's really more kind of decorative or just an emotion I'm having. And that's what I have to do when I write a movie. I have to go back and go back and go back and see if there's more powerful words that can punch something even more with less words. Back to the linear mind thing. One of the things that fascinates me, and it happened because I was in this room and one of the guys played one of these compilation crash videos where it's all the footage out of a dash cam of an insurance camera system in a car, right? It's fascinating to watch that stuff. I mentioned it a couple of times a long time ago. You will become a more cautious driver because the very spectrum of what is possible when you're driving a car starts widening. You're like, oh my gosh, yeah, people could come out of nowhere. Don't rush across the intersection. If you don't have visuals left and right, because someone could be drunk and screaming through on their fucking phone, and you're dead. You're dead. You're totally innocent from being a shitty driver. They're going to potentially blow a light and kill you. Okay. So one of the areas that it kind of gravitated to, which I've mentioned a couple times, is Russia. And it was this overwhelming inability to drive and walk across the street in Russia. I mean, it is unbelievable the amount of accidents these folks have, and the sheer stupidity of the accidents is mind-blowing. I mean, you see that stuff in China and third world countries, but Russia, come on. They're not a third world country. I mean, every country's got a little third world in them. America is utterly transforming at this point, it almost seems. However, I'm looking at what's going on. Why? And you see these people walk across streets, and their crosswalks don't have lights. They don't have any warning to the drivers that, yeah, right here is a crosswalk. And when it snows, you can't see anything on the street. And so they have these signs, and they're so repetitive. They just put a sign, it seems like every 100, 200, 300 feet. And so it's like, I could see a driver getting completely numb to, okay, well, someone can walk across the street. It's Russia. You can walk across the street wherever you want. There's no jaywalkie tickets, right? I'm making that up. But you will see people of all ages walk right across the street, and they're not looking left and right. When I did my episode on linear minds, I talked about this a little bit. But almost every single species of accident that you see everywhere around the world, but especially 80, 90% of what's happening in Russia, is there doesn't seem to be a linear mind. Which blows my mind because if you get a standard education, at least in the middle class in Russia, unless things have changed, okay, they're forced to learn the basic reading, writing, and arithmetic, but they're also forced to engage in art, both musical art and sketch and paint art. They really try to round out the brains of these individuals. But maybe one of the reasons why they've struggled for so long is that they're still not quite, and this is really bizarre because Russia has the best chess players in the planet, okay? Human chess players anyway. And human chess players are the best example of a linear mind going to extremes. I mean, a person, again, can see 20 steps out. They watch you move the first piece, and they know 50 games that started that way, if not 500 games, not 5,000 games that started out exactly like that, and they're watching for a pattern because they studied it so much. So they do make some of the most brilliant minds on planet Earth that have linear timelines, okay? But these folks that do really bad passes, their cars aren't even fast enough to get past the car in front of them, and they end up eating a semi. They can't imagine it. China, oh my God. People on scooters just driving in front of semis, like they don't understand the basics of physics, right? Okay, if it weighs a shit ton more than you, there's nothing you can do to slow it down. If you get in front of it, you're going to be basically a water balloon all over the freaking ground, right? So imagine that you're really intelligent. I mean, really intelligent. You don't only have the smarts of memorizing and repeating facts, but you also have the ability to connect and deduce. But if you can't see it in a timeline, how you would apply this to reality, then you have a small percentage of true IQ that you could be applying to your mastery, your gift from God, right? What a cell phone does to a human being is sort of like, what is it, The Little Mermaid, right? Where that witchy broad took Ariel's voice away, but she was an amazing singer. Some of you, I can almost guarantee you, if you hit 30, this is definitely true about all of you. You have a family member or friend who has a talent that is unbelievable. They play the banjo. They do whatever. They sing. They They're just amazing at whatever. They're carpenters, whatever it is. They're amazing at it. But they don't do it because they're addicted to something else. TV, sports, drugs, watching porn, watching just thousands of videos every night before they go to bed. They're not doing anything with their talent. And they'll also, from time to time, express how disappointed they are with their life because, and they might, from time to time, they might even tell you how life is so hard for them and how it's life's fault that they don't have the opportunities that they have. Remember, opportunity is super hard work and luck mixed together. Luck is hard work. That's why most people I know, the thing that you will find out depending on your life journey is that if you truly get a groundbreaking opportunity, it's because you met the right person at the right time and you had the right skill set. Obviously, being a good communicator is usually always a part of that too. But every opportunity I've ever had in life where I met someone that that they were my idols, right? I've literally been so intensely blessed. The only idols I haven't worked for, I think, are dead or died before I was born or died when I was a kid. But when I meet these folks and I communicate clearly, we can always find a way to work together to create something. And they see in you what you may not see in yourself, and they see you as a tool as well as a friend. Like, let's do something really cool together, right? Robert Llewellyn, he's the guy who plays Crichton on Red Dwarf. I approached him several times to help him out with his website because he had this really website he created himself, which is, God bless him, it was good for not being a coder. But I'm working at EA. I got tons of money. I'm managing this huge EA.com production. And on the side, I'm just trying to keep busy, trying to keep my mind creative. And so I'm doing all kinds of stuff. So I approached him several times, finally got through to him by making a joke. And he laughed. And he said, okay, now that I got your attention, let's work together. And he went quiet on me again. So I sent him what I want. I sent a whole design of his site. Now this turns into something else very fast. Sent him a site and he's like, he doesn't reply. And so I said, come on, dude, tell me you hate me or whatever. He's like, dude, I love it. He goes, I don't have any money for this right now. And of course he doesn't know how much I'm going to charge. I said, dude, I'm already wealthy. I don't need your money. I just want to be a part of your journey because I'm a huge fan. He's like, all right, I feel weird, And so we blew up his representation online. Okay. So within, 2 years of maybe even a year, I don't remember, he sends me this new comedy bit he's going to do and tour all over the UK called Woman Wizard. And so he goes, I need you to draw tons of stuff for me. He's a cartoon artist. It's amazing. So we do that. He comes over here. I film him at one of his junkyard wars here. And it was a scrap heap challenge over there. I film him. That's when I met those dudes, those pilots who were talking about that day in September. Again, wow, my life, right? Keep bumping into these people who are utter authorities on this science. I didn't even tell him. I just had that moment. Anyway, we finished that. He does the first show here in LA. I brought all my friends. He brought the whole cast and crew of Junkyard Wars. And then within probably 3 years, he writes a script for a little short movie called IT2I2, and It Thinks Therefore It Is. Brilliant little script. I was really into writing at the time, but I was still a super novice that wasn't formally trained by anybody or mentored by anybody. But I took the script and I wrote 25% more, roughly, somewhere in there, of like more punchlines and stuff, because it was a geeky franchise script. And I knew the personalities, having worked in the tech industry my entire life at the time, probably 15 years at the time. He loved it. He acted my lines. So you see how that starts to manifest if you've got the talent at the time that you get the opportunity. And so never let your loves go, And there's always some low impact thing that you love too. I know like someone might be listening to me who's 70 years old and they're like, okay, dude, I got limited amount of energy. I'm not living in the area where you live. I don't know how to reach out to these people, and it's much more difficult to contact people these days. I'm glad I got in when I did. But there's always something you can do sitting in a chair with a computer. It's almost always the case. One of my high school acquaintances, he's the son of one of my geometry teachers, great guy. He jumped off a boat when he was 18 years old because he needed to tie the boat off. So he jumps off the boat, and apparently it was shallow water, and he broke his neck on a rock. And he became a quadriplegic at 18 years old. And he was obviously devastated, lots of rehabilitation, great family, great kid, great dad. And he ends up today, he's written a book about it, and he's got the most gorgeous wife you've ever seen in your life. She's just wonderful. This dude said, okay, I'm screwed. I'm in a chair. I got a little pipe in my mouth. And I think he has limited movement of his hands because he can move his chair a little bit. But man, that guy, he smiles every single day. And he says, his book is all about it. It's a rough ride. It's not easy. But he just basically, at 18, he just said, look, I've lived more years as a quadriplegic now than I have prior. That's kind of a memory of a previous life. And so I look at him, and it's Kevin Olson is his name. What excuse do I have? What excuse do you have? And there's millions of examples out there. Now, I know there's some ailments that can really zap you, so I'm not trying to say that, you should feel guilty if you can't find something. But this is part of the ecosystem of fortifying who you are as a person such that there is a life worth living. And when there's a life worth living, there's an interesting thing that occurs. You need freedom, usually, to live that life. No matter how modest you might be, that desire and need for freedom to do your thing is there. Imagine like all these kids who blow your mind. What's interesting about getting older is that when you're young, you're the guy that's going to be the rock star. You're the rapper or whatever, the movie star, right? You're that person. You'll fall in love with actors and actresses who are your age, or you'll like some of the heroes that are kind of maybe your dad's age or in between you and your dad's age, right? Your mom's age or whatever. Then when you get older and you get in your 40s, you see these kids that are like 21 years old killing it, right? I mean, it's probably auto-tuned at this point, but whatever. They're killing it. Some of them are legit. And you're thinking, oh my God, like, how old is this kid? Oh my God, I had my third job and my fourth car before this kid was even born. And you see it. Now, money will get you freedom, okay? But when you're not there yet, or you're just modest, you don't need all that stupid stuff to create a value for yourself. You'll fight. But think about the kids today. They're beat down. They're beat down by the system. I saw this video today where a girl was in her car, and she said, you know what? I spend 47% of my income on my rent, and I'm thinking about quitting the job that I love because it simply doesn't pay enough money for me to live. She goes, at this point, I'll never own a house. If even I had a husband that made the same amount of money as me, we wouldn't be able to afford a house either. And so they're seeing their diminished future. They're seeing the fact that a dream, what is that? A dream is a thing I have when I go to bed, maybe. Because they're stuck in their telephones. They're stuck watching bullshit. That's why I think that Gen X is actually a very interesting generation. If you're a baby boomer and you're fighting, you are a rare breed, and God bless you 10 times over. Because I think that most of Gen X, baby boomers got the American dream, or whatever country you're in, to a satiated level where now they're simply getting older and they're saying, well, I don't have the energy to do anything else. And I understand that. But Gen X is like, wait a minute. We potentially got raised in the 70s, in the 80s, and maybe the early 90s before they blew up the world in the 90s and made it all dark, right? Gangster rap, fucking grunge music, all that shit, right? And so we're kind of in the middle going, wow, we weren't indoctrinated to give up. We were indoctrinated by hip hop to help each other and not do drugs, right? We had rock and roll that just basically said, this music right here is making you feel a certain way, like Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue or something like that. It makes you feel so energetic that there's got to be something you're going to do with your hands or your mind or something, your body, that matches that music, and it's freedom and it's expression in one way or the other. I wrote my first software product that I sold to Fortune 1000 companies when I was 23 years old. It took me 6 months to write it. Every day after work, I wrote this product. And it was written to Metallica, the Don't Tread on Me album, over and over and over at my headset. A lot of the drawings and paintings I did as a child, or just music playing in my ears, and it would totally, like Jean Jarre or whatever, or Kiss or something like that. It just crafted, that frequency went in me like a nice healing frequency or stimulating creative frequency. And I like a crystal, which I am, I took in that and I piezoed out of my body art that was mine. It was my frequency. My soul reshaped that frequency to something else cool, you know? They're trying to kill our kids, and metaphorically and probably literally, but they're trying to kill their minds so they have no desires. And that's why you have certain third world countries starting social credit systems and the people barely notice. And what's funny about it is if you're like one of the first generation kids in a third world country and you're holding a cell phone in your hand, you know, China has this, I watch them, they absolutely love the showboating of having a telephone. See, I got his phone. I got a phone. And they love checking in with technology to stores and stuff. They love it. It's new to them, right? It's a social status thing. In America, it's like, unfortunately, babies are being raised on iPads, you know? But then there's that little side note too, which is the haves and the have-nots. The haves and the have-nots are typically, it's an analogy referring to wealth. And it's so, wealth is such a teeny tiny part of the haves and the have-nots, man. I did an episode called Effort Shaming, which YouTube hated. It was pretty funny. But in that, I gave you this analogy that, you know, if they were able to get rid of all of the liberals won, okay, and they got rid of everything, and there's no more this and that, and everybody loves, you have to love people by law, you know. There's a funny Red Dwarf episode in the recent series that is exactly that. You can't do it. You just can't live like that. But I gave you an analogy that if you had a family, okay, that was sort of, I know, the amalgamation of all of our races put together, right? As long as one of the children is taller than the other child, the child that's shorter might think that the taller person has more than they have, so they'll start hitting them. It doesn't happen too much in Caucasian families, but I know that with my black friends who might have lighter skin, they'll tell me in closed door sessions, they're like, yeah, you know, even in my own family, because I got this lighter skin, I get a little hated on. And they'll say things, and it's okay. It's one level if their siblings say something about, you're the light-skinned brother, you're whatever. But when their parents say it, that level of rejection is really hard to sleep with. My parent doesn't like me because I'm not as dark as my brother or sister. It's hardcore, man. And I'm just using that as an example because it's a color you can see in your head. But there are all kinds of metrics that happen to all families of all races. You're never going to get rid of people envying other people for the most ridiculous reasons on planet Earth. It is so strange how, you know, I'll just use the word darkness. Darkness can whisper in your ear, and you have to make sure, it's my Black Apple episode, you have to make sure you don't listen to it because it will launch inside your soul these suspicions. It'll write history that doesn't exist. I think I told you when I first moved from Massachusetts back to Kansas, I had a real rough school in Massachusetts, like physically rough. And I moved back home. It was like peaceful and wonderful. And this kid wanted to fight me. I had never heard of the kid before. And he's like, yeah, he's going to fight you after school. I'm like, oh, God, let's all go talk to him, man. Like, He's younger than me. He's really scrawny, man. And it's like, no, this is not going to go well for him at all. But I went out there on the corner of this outside school. I'm like ninth grade or whatever. Pretty big for my age at the time. And I was like, what's the deal? Like, why does this kid not like me? You know? And he says, his girlfriend likes you more than him. So I don't even, to this day, I have no idea who the girl was. And it's a teeny tiny town. It's unbelievable. They might have said her name, but I'm fresh. I don't know anybody. And he's doing all these karate moves. It was pretty funny all by himself. And he wouldn't even look at me, man. I was like, he was smart enough not to do something stupid. But it was all in his head. It was totally in his head. Had he come up to me and said, man, I really like this girl, but she seems to like you, I would have hooked him up like an 80s movie. I was like, okay, dude, I will make you look great and I'll look like a jerk and we will get you as close to that girl as possible. That's what I would have done for the guy. It's the kind of person I am, right? But instead, it went the demonic, dark route. And nothing happened. It was just a few minutes out of my life. But we've all fallen victim of suspicion. Suspicion is bullshit that's whispered into your ear from outside of your being. You allow some information in that's totally a lie. And you believe, because you think you have little indicators, right? Sometimes you're right about things, you know, but that's probably coming more from inside you. Suspicion's a joke. Envy is a joke. You think that Mick Jagger looked in the mirror as a kid and said, man, I'm the most handsome dude on planet Earth. Now, he was in England, so there's different factors there. But he has done really well in his life based on his looks. And what he did was he took his looks and he made them unique. And he said, look, I look different than everyone else. And I'm going to make that look the sexiest thing on planet Earth. And when 99.9% of the guys in the world look in the mirror, they don't have my genetics and they're envious. And we always, you know, in that generation, we translated that envious to fandom, right? We like the guy. So that's why you have to spin everything. I have this old story I told. I was in Venice Beach. And it was the years of mid-90s. And this really heavy-set black girl was in this shop. And she had a bunch of really good-looking friends with her, and they're all in these bathing suits. This one girl was very large for her size, right? But here's the thing. If you just showed me photographs and said who's attractive and who's not, I obviously would put her last because I'm not really attracted to the overweight thing. But here's the funny Paul Harvey to the story. The way she carried herself, both her voice and what she said and how she moved her body, it was the most stunning, sexy woman I'd ever seen that day. And I remember I saw it burn in my mind watching her walk away from me with all of her friends who were all what you might think like the Barbie doll look. And I think whoever I was with, I just said, isn't it funny? I said, that girl is way more sexy than all the other girls. But at face value, I would have judged it the opposite way. What I'm mentioning this for is so you can sort of, I don't really think you guys have this issue, but if you have to mentor your kid or friend, the haves and the have-nots, it's a fool's errand for the brain. You have something that they like, usually. But when you're focused outside of yourself, right, then you don't focus on what you have. You're so envious that you miss your whole life, right? I know that we talk about, or I talk about these sort of esoteric sort of concepts. The first part of this episode, and that's probably what I'll call it, word of mouth, is about, obviously, the activity that those of us who are awake can engage a method to help spread at least curiosity and perhaps critical thinking. The second stage of this episode is about if we don't also invest and help people and remind people that they have to have something to live for, such that they lust for the end product that we're trying to go for, then they'll never understand. Well, like, what do you want freedom for? I'm trapped in my apartment. I go to work. I serve coffee. I come home. I got a PhD, $300,000 worth of debt. I'm screwed. We all have to work together. We have to literally reach out and help people, right? There was this story about Carol Burnett, and she told this story, and she said She was a struggling actress, and I think she was in New York at the time. She was actually in a twilight zone right early in her career, but somehow she met this guy. And he says, I really like your performances. I can't remember how he met her. He says, come to my mansion, or come to my house in San Diego. I think it was San Diego. Somewhere in California. She goes to the house. She's thinking, oh man, maybe he's a weirdo. And he wasn't. But he had interviewed her about how much money she needed to kind of get her life straight. I forgot how much money it was. It wasn't that much money. But he brings her into the house, and he had a wife that was there, if I remember the story right. So it was diffused that he was going to be doing anything weird, calmed her soul a little bit. And he writes her the check. And he says, okay, I'm doing this because I believe in you, but I'm only going to do this for you if you agree to one thing. And the one thing was that she had to do this for someone else at some point in her career. I think too, it might have been that he said, this isn't a gift, this is a loan. I think he said that too. It's not like $1,000, $2,000, which I think this was in the 60s. It's a lot of money, folks. It's almost 10 times the amount of money today. And of course, that was the pivotal thing that happened to her. And there's another person who had the same thing. I can't remember who it was. I have a close friend of mine who started a business, and he was doing landscaping, and he did this guy's house, and he didn't have another job lined up. And the guy said, why don't you have a formal business and you make this? And the guy gave him like $100,000 or something like that. It's these little gifts. It's not money all the time. Obviously, it could be just your advice, your mentorship, or what I find in this world is connecting two people together at the right time to realize their dreams. And usually the best one is a master and an apprentice. Hooking them up with someone who's already done it all. Guide them. Because two novices trying to get it done, well, it works every once in a while, but it's a crash and burn success story. They are messing up the world. You know that. We have to clean it up. And you also know that. So I'm open. I just gave you some ideas, some basic concepts. Trying to fight the archetypes of envy and the haves and the have-nots. They know that people want to make excuses. It's a natural thing to make an excuse of why you're failing. So the libs and all their narratives are all designed to give someone an excuse. So you can't attract the opposite sex at 12 or 13 when you're awkward and you're going through all your puberty. Well, you should just change your sex. That's going to fix it all. And surgically manipulate yourself. Block all your hormones. It's going to fix everything. Or if you're not white, boy, that's the reason why, My friends, I swear, I've been blessed to be around so many different colors, and they're so successful and so amazing. And I ask them, I said, well, how'd you get where you are? And it's like, oh, I studied in school, got a college degree. At the time, they're a little older than me. That was definitely the way to get in. And they just got a job, and they worked really hard, and they shined, and they got promoted. Wow, funny concept, right? I find that it's very rare that I find someone that has gone through the stages without the perception that they're less than everybody else, which is part of the indoctrination, right? And then not succeed just like everybody else, right? I'm blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid, but I'm telling you what, man, I couldn't get a cosign from my parents to buy my first car, for Christ's sake, right? I came to California with $236 in my pocket. I spent $100 to get here, so I had $136 in my pocket when I got here. I think they might have sent me another $200 6 months later, when it really didn't matter as much. It definitely helped. My bank account was overdrawn for the first 4 years of my life, almost like it was a lottery. I was winning constantly. If I could have the money back for overdraft charges, I could probably go buy a car right now. So it's tough all over. It is tough all over. And being in Orange County, which was a very interesting experience for me, and seeing the trust fund babies. I know a lot of rich people, but they earned every penny. But I know some trust fund kids, and even though they might have a little smile on their face and they got the Ferrari out front or better, they're only living a tiny portion of their life most of the time. Some people take advantage of it and they blow up. They really, really do well. Anyway, I know you feel me. I thought I'd take a break from sort of the exhibition episodes. We're going through either an individual's life or a movie or some specific theory. These are important little tidbits that I think we all think about, but we just don't have those conversations. Find someone you can have these conversations with, even if it's just online. Hearing your own words come out will help you realize whether or not what you're saying is optimized, whether you really believe what you're saying. I find that repetition tests you on a daily basis, you know. If you haven't been to deepthoughtsradio.com, please go. Everything's up there. Audio, video. There's a store up there. To the Patreon and PayPal folks, thank you so much. Remember, if you contribute on Patreon or PayPal, your name goes in the credits and forever, and you get the episodes before everybody else. As I'm uploading them, I put the soundtrack up there, so those of you like audio only, you get the audio, you just download it to your phone and play it whenever you want. Before the video, sometimes 8 hours, 12 hours, sometimes 3 days before it releases. Anyway, take care of yourself and someone else, and I'll see you in the next Deep Thoughts. Over and out. They didn't engage. Or it's not. Let me reset that. Fuck. Get some bloopers on this one.